Welcome to this week's Head to Toe Healing Live. Dr. Reese created Head to Toe Healing many years ago, and he's been helping thousands of people regain their health. In our membership, people utilize three macro methods as we address the whole body. It's the musculoskeletal system, it's nutrition, and mindfulness. When they do this, they get out of chronic pain, they start regaining their health, providing their body with the right environment so it can heal itself. And we're going to talk about a topic that comes up pretty regularly with people looking into our program and getting started with us in our membership. It's fibromyalgia. My name is Coach Karen, and today joined with me are three of our specialists that are in our membership typically. We have Coach Ryan with us, we have Coach Gingy, and Coach Sean. Today, with the topic of fibromyalgia, typically, well, it is a chronic condition, and a lot of times it starts with three major issues. So we're gonna touch on each one of those and probably a few others as well. But the three common signs that typically happen are pain, fatigue, and cognitive difficulties. So approaching pain, I want to start on that first. Ryan, with that, from a nutritional perspective, how does that play a role with individuals that have fibromyalgia?
Well, with fibromyalgia, you could have a few different things going on. First of all, you could just have outright nutrient deficiency. You need nutrients for your muscles to function, for your nerves to function. And so pain can just be caused by nutrient deficiencies, full stop. But typically, as always, with any chronic problem, there's usually a digestion problem involved. And leaky gut is going to be the most likely one there, where it's letting in proteins that are not supposed to be in the blood. They're supposed to be fully digested before they get absorbed. And if those get into the blood, then the body mobilizes an immune response to it, which is one of the reasons why you so often see, like more than half of the time, people with fibromyalgia have some kind of chronic infection type problem or elevated antibodies or white blood cells or something to show you that the immune system is actually at least a part of the source of the pain there. So obviously we want to fix the guts. We want to top up all 90 essential nutrients. And I've got a list of them that I've been able to cobble together that are at least directly related to fibromyalgia in some way. And those same nutrients are going to be involved in the immune system as well. And so digestion problems, again, typical for chronic problems in general. Nutrient deficiency is also typical for chronic disease in general. And hypothyroidism, which is also, largely just nutrient deficiencies and digestion problems and so on. And we've talked about that at length otherwise, but a little bit more specific nutrient groups and a little bit trickier to turn around hypothyroidism. And it is estimated that about 60% of people with fibromyalgia have hypothyroidism, and mostly undiagnosed, because it's probably the most commonly undiagnosed problem that there is out there in the modern world. And so it could be a thyroid problem. Just saying that would be three major angles that we would tackle. And the first one, just filling in the nutrients, that's not really specific to fibromyalgia, because we would do that with anyone. We would always get them all on all 90 essential nutrients.
Thank you for that. Coach Sean, with people with fibromyalgia, a lot of times they have multiple pain regions. It affects the whole body. It could be the back, the shoulders, the neck, their legs. By incorporating posture alignment therapy, how would that help them?
Well, basically, with our approach, we focus on two main things, and that's pain management and then energy management. And so, with fibromyalgia, it's difficult to even do daily activities, but it's kind of like the problem starts to perpetuate the problem itself. And so it's just an ongoing cycle of, oh, I don't feel like I don't have the energy to do these certain tasks, but also like I need to do that in order to get over this hump. And going back to something that Ryan mentioned with like nutritional deficiency being one of those roots to fibromyalgia, well, if you can't properly circulate not just blood, but lymph and keep the bones and muscles off of the nerves, then that's going to also cause more issues down the line and even exacerbate the fibromyalgia issues. And so you can only get as much nutrients as you can adequately circulate throughout your body, or you can only detox as much as you can adequately detox out of your body, and those are little hoses and streams and pathways. And so if those are becoming blocked, even more so because you have a sedentary lifestyle, then it's just going to cause an ongoing issue. And so with posture alignment therapy, we would of course pay attention to those two main things that I spoke on in the beginning: pain management and energy management, and keep that in mind when we're working with someone with fibromyalgia, but also encourage them to get some type of movement, because it's not going to exactly like help them if they continue to live sedentary. And I understand it's because of pain, or it could be because of lack of energy, but there are ways where you can meet and help your body where it is and do minimalistic activities that can get a pretty significant result. And doing that daily will slowly build up the endurance and help take some of the load away from the muscles, and overall take some of the symptoms away from the fibromyalgia.
Thank you for that. Coach Gingy, sometimes individuals get in a mental loop when it comes to pain. What are your thoughts about pain management from the mindfulness viewpoint?
I was actually going to piggyback on what Sean was saying a little bit, and how this can be a pattern that gets reinforced. And so, obviously, if you're in pain, you're going to be less likely to want to do something that would get you out of pain, even, I'll say, even though it will get you out of pain, just because it will be painful to do in the first place. And this is generally the roadblock for a lot of people is, there's an obstacle in between them and what they want, but it takes being uncomfortable. It takes maybe a little bit of pain to push through. It takes something in order to get to the other side of that. And, a lot of this is going to be breaking old patterns. How much do you sit on the couch? How much do you have adequate nutrition in your body? Understanding the root causes to fibromyalgia, where I would take it is trying to build up momentum in your life. A lot of people focus, I think, too much on discipline and on motivation. They're like, well, I need to be motivated. I need to be able to, I want to wake up. I want to have all this energy. And they're relying on those circumstances to fuel them into what they say they want in their life. Whereas if they were to stop and realize that they could just do one thing today, even if they're super painful, like for example, we had some people in the mindfulness class talking about how they don't have a whole hour to dedicate to the posture work. And I was like, what makes you think you have to do a whole hour? And they were like, oh, you mean I could just do half of it? I was like, you could do half of it. And if it really comes down to it, you can just do 1 minute, do 1 minute today, do 2 minutes tomorrow, do 5 minutes at the end of the next day. And by doing that, you end up building up momentum in your life, and you don't have to rely on discipline or motivation as what I would call a crutch. You can literally build in the momentum in your life and not have to suffer through an hour worth of pain. Just do 1 minute, then 2 minutes, then 3 minutes, then 5 minutes, and 10 minutes. And so I would first have people identify what is the thing that's in the way. Like, why do I have to spend an hour doing this? Then figure out a solution. I can do at least 1 minute and move forward from there. And that generally is enough to get people in the right state of mind to get themselves out of pain. Well, I don't want to focus on doing all my supplements. Great, just do one. I don't want to have to do all these. Okay, just do one. And it's that one step after the next step that will eventually lead you all the way down the path to the results that you're looking for.
That is so true. It's funny because I recently got one of those walking pads that are popular these days, and I thought, you know what? I'm up early. I'll just get on it for 5 minutes because I only have 5 minutes. I've got a lot to do this morning. I got on it for 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, that was nothing. I only went a short distance. I'm going to just do another 5 minutes. And then it actually ended up to be 20 minutes. But
And see,
just,
that's the thing that always happens.
yeah, and it wasn't that bad. And I started feeling better, and oxygen was flowing through my body, and I was alert and refreshed. It's just what you were talking about. It's amazing. So another question for you, Gingy. I asked you this earlier, but I'm really glad you piggybacked on what Coach Sean was saying. That was such helpful information. So when people get into that mental loop when it comes to pain, what are your thoughts of pain management from the mindfulness approach? How can they go about it to get out of that mental loop?
So the biggest thing about pain is it's not something you want to run away from. It's not something that you want to suppress or avoid. Like we've talked about it a bunch on these calls, pain is like the warning light on your dashboard of your car. And by trying to avoid the pain is like trying not to look at the symbol or trying to put a piece of tape over the warning light. You want to actually understand what the pain is trying to communicate to you. And if the pain is trying to communicate like, hey, there's an injury over here, well, then you want to make sure not to ignore that and take a bunch of pain meds and then walk on the injury anyway, because you're going to make the injury worse. Or if you have migraines, okay, we'll take a bunch of pills and numb the migraine. And now the underlying problem is going to continue to get worse and worse and worse. You're going to need more and more medication. So you should look at, and everybody should look at, pain as your body communicating to you that there's something you need to pay attention to. And if you use that framework, then you're no longer trying to suppress the pain or get away from the pain. You recognize that your body is communicating, and then you can do something about the communication. Okay, well, I have headaches. Okay, well, why? That's a great question as opposed to how do I get this headache to go away? How do I get it out of my way? So by understanding that it's communication and that it's telling you that you need to pay more attention to something, you can follow that to find an actual solution. I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't take a pain med because sometimes that's necessary. Like maybe you don't have the time and you're in the middle of work or you're on a road trip and you literally can't stop and take the time to listen to what your body's trying to say. So great. Take some pain medication that day, but then the next day investigate what is it that my body's trying to tell me? Do I have a posture problem? Do I have a nutritional problem? Am I chronically stressed out or angry or afraid or concerned about what might happen in the future that's causing this pain to show up like this? And so that's why we have all three of these modalities or these three legs to the stool, because that allows you to get at it from all the various angles that could be causing the pain source in the first place. And if you can underroot it and then be able to reverse the underlying issue, well, then the pain won't show up for you to numb anymore. And that's the ideal goal. So pain management, there's a lot of stuff you could do, like breathing exercises or inner child work, like Dr. Reese talks about in the membership. But in all reality, it's about changing your relationship with pain so that it's not something that's just an inconvenience to you. It's something that is actually leading you to a solution, which is the whole reason it's there in the first place. Like you're supposed to break a leg, and it's supposed to be so painful that you don't put weight on it anymore, so that it can heal, and then you can put weight on it again. The pain goes away, okay, safe to walk on. So that should be the relationship we have. Okay, I've got pain. I need to pay attention to this. Kind of seems too simple to put out there, since I don't have anything more mystical for you.
No, that's very, very helpful. We've got several comments and questions in the chat. So I want to address some of those and then we'll get back to our topic. Jensinus is saying, I have hypothyroid and no gallbladder. I need help. Any suggestions? Ryan, could you approach that one?
Well, number one, she needs to be able to absorb fat properly, digest and absorb fat properly. And if she has a missing gallbladder, then that's going to be a big problem for her. So she needs to supplement with bile. We use bile and digestive enzymes. You could technically, theoretically, just use bile, but I would throw the enzymes in there as well. A lot of enzyme products have bile in them. And that needs to be taken before every meal because there's no longer enough bile there to fully do the job to absorb the fats. And that's just, one major thing here. Of course, we would fill in all 90 essential nutrients. We would get the person off the poor four foods. People with hypothyroidism, especially if it's been long-standing, tend to be sensitive to a bunch of other foods as well. So, there's usually quite a bit of coaching involved in getting them onto some kind of a stable omnivorous diet and reintroducing foods one by one as they get better if they were sensitive to them in the first place, staying off of the poor four forever, of course. And with hypothyroidism, there's some nutrients that we have to boost significantly, including iodine, often vitamin C, could be selenium as well. Like, we're going to use all these nutrients anyways, but I can't just give random dose recommendations to someone here that I don't know, because especially with iodine, iodine is one of the most likely nutrients to cause a negative reaction up front, which is just something you have to get through and use small doses for the time being. And again, it requires a fair bit of coaching. Thyroid can be tricky. The main reason it's tricky is because a lot of those people tend to be very sensitive to things, not just foods, but supplements, random ingredients, preservatives, all kinds of things that the average person isn't going to notice, but with them, they can. So we need to be a little bit more hands-on with them usually.
With people like that, that have a lot of extreme sensitivities, how long does it usually take to get their body to regenerate and respond more appropriately? Obviously, the digestion part has to happen first. But in your experience, Ryan, how long does that typically take?
For thyroid, typically 6 to 12 months, somewhere around there, usually. Sometimes you see significant results much faster within a few months, but I would be expecting the long haul with it, because typically they have a bunch of other problems as well. And hypothyroid is sort of just the center of the dartboard, but they're going to have a bunch of other problems every time. They're always going to have a bunch of other symptoms. So like always, we would start with the digestion, filling in the nutrients, seeing how they go, seeing if there's any problems, anything that we need to change, adjust, increase, decrease. The first 3, 4, 5 months with a hypothyroid person, once again, it's usually pretty hands-on.
When you were talking about that, you were saying fill in the gaps. It made me think of an analogy about digestion. So when people have leaky gut, a lot of times they get holes in the digestive tract. And basically think about if you're on a boat and you've got holes in the boat and the water just keeps coming in and you can't empty it out until those holes are filled, just like your digestive tract, until it's repaired. There's no way that the absorption is going to happen with the nutrients. So it just takes time. Let's see, another question here. Gina is asking, root cause of eye floaters. Ryan, could you address this one as well?
Don't know that one. We've seen eye floaters go away many times. I just can't say that any specific nutrient did it. So the program in general did it. I was taught that floaters were dead tissue and you couldn't get rid of them. Now I believe there's 2 different types. One is just truly dead tissue and it's just permanent. And the other one, I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it definitely goes away. And not just on our program. I've had many, many people tell me that they got rid of floaters through various different supplements, herbal programs, castor oil and pearl powders become a popular one recently, applied around the eyes. So there's lots of different ways to get rid of them. Apparently, there isn't one clear-cut nutrient deficiency or anything like that. I imagine that these people, whether they were taking nutrients or herbs, that it corrected some kind of metabolic dysfunction. The body was able to clean up its waste a little bit better. But yeah, there's no specific protocol for it, from me at least. I would just expect them to go away after several months on the program. Sometimes fast, actually. I've seen them go away quite fast. Sometimes it takes longer, of course, as with anyone. Some people take longer. But yeah, I don't have a specific nutrient deficiency for that.
Okay. Well, and it's been amazing. We've had many members talk about how they go to the eye doctor and their vision improves, and they're just surprised as well as the doctor. And that's what happens when your body is just topped up with the right nutrition and it gets the right flow of energy, nutrients, oxygen, blood flow when you're doing posture therapy and the mindfulness training in conjunction with those things. One more question here. What do I do for lymphedema? Ryan or Coach Sean? Maybe both of you could address this one.
I could go first. So lymph edema, swollen lymph, fluid retention in the lymph. I'll give one secret here. There's an inorganic version of selenium that the industry mostly does not use. It's more used in animals. Like if you flip over your dog food or cat food, it's most likely going to have the form of selenium called sodium selenite. And in the case of lymphedema, the inorganic form of selenium tends to work a lot better and a lot faster than the amino acid version, selenomethionine, which is what we use, and that's the industry standard is the amino acid version of selenium. It is better absorbed, it's better overall. But when it comes to lymphedema, sodium selenite is very, very effective. You do have to be careful with selenium. It does become toxic in higher doses, and especially with the inorganic form there. So I wouldn't be going over 1 milligram for a while.
Okay.
I mean, like a couple of weeks, 1 milligram for a couple of weeks. If somebody has acute lymphedema right now, I can't recommend all 90 essential nutrients to you and stuff, but a 1 milligram dose, which is a 1,000 microgram dose of selenium, you might find products with 800 micrograms in it. That's fine as well. You could take 2 of them very cautiously. If you feel nauseated, then cut it down to 1. But yeah, I would only do that for about 2 weeks. I wouldn't do that dose much longer than that. And I would, of course, want them to be on all 90 essential nutrients and off the bad foods as well. But that is probably the most powerful thing that you could go and pick up right now and add in. And there shouldn't be any adverse effects or anything.
Coach Sean, any tips on moving lymph with PAT?
I mean, that's where it would start. They would need to get some type of movement. I mean, of course, we would be able to give them more extended movement where they're working on the whole body in specific ways. But I don't think people move enough today, period. And that is the one way, if not the most significant way, you can move the lymph is if you get movement. You have to move the muscles to be able to move the lymph. It's just the whole process of, I mean, that's how the body was designed. That's how we pump the lymph around that's how we pump the lymph around our body. We get movement. And usually it occurs in like the extremity areas, your legs, your arms, and that's where the movement needs to occur, but it doesn't mean that's the source. It's usually in the shoulders and the hips, and that's the main problem. You can stand against the wall, and you can very well see if your shoulders are rounded forward without forcing it. Stand against the wall and see if your shoulders touch the wall, if your upper back touches the wall, if your head touches the wall. How are your legs? There's just so many ways that lymphedema can affect you. And really, all you would need to do is learn how to move more in your daily life. Again, I just don't think people realize how sedentary they are. And, it's more than just getting up and walking around. It's getting out of that movement box. We're all working in the movement box, and we drive like this, we work like this, we eat like this. I've never come out of that box since all of those things that I just mentioned. And so very rarely are we extending ourselves out of the box, reaching up to grab something on the top shelf, turning around, grabbing something behind us, doing things like that on a day-to-day basis. Like, ask yourself, when is the last time I actually did something like that? Pulled myself up on something or reached and grabbed something once or twice a week? I mean, it should be multiple times a day. So just being able to get some type of movement and get out and get active is what I can give to non-members. But of course, with people that we work with, we do that every single day. And people get the results. And they end up losing weight because they're moving so much lymph around. They're finally detoxing properly. So the most I can give is just get active. But if you want true help, get on a program that helps you learn how to move properly and use all of those functions that your body was naturally designed to use.
Thank you for that, Coach Sean. Actually, when you were talking about people not moving as much today, it made me think about the convenience of our modern cars. A lot of times they have backup cameras. We don't even turn to look behind us or to change lanes because we've got all these cameras all around the car, and it's made us quite lazy. And I remember many, many years ago when I was in when I was in an accident, somebody hit the back of my car and I was in a lot of pain and I couldn't look over my shoulder anymore. because until I got out of that pain, it was restricted. And like Gingy was talking about, my pain was telling me I had an issue, don't turn. And I really had to practice that for a while. But for those of you that are just tuning in or have been on the call since we began, if you want to get started or find out if head to toe healing is for you, you want to go to drkevinreese.com. Click on the book tab. You want to start with these books, the red and the green book for starters. Get yourself educated, find out if head to toe healing is for you. We would certainly love to help you, but you really need to have a foundation and understanding what head to toe healing is about. And those books will be a great start. I did see a note in one of the comments. Somebody was saying, I would like somebody to call me. If you would like us to call you, you can schedule a free call with one of our coaches. Just go to the Start tab on drkevinreese.com and you can book an appointment with us and we can talk to you about your specific conditions. But let's get back to the questions. So we have another person here, Tyler. He's on the eye topic, Ryan. He says, how do I remedy macular edema? I also have diabetic renopathy. I can't say that. Renopathy in the back of my eyes. I need to get control of this very soon. What can you do to help?
Well, what he needs to get control of is the blood sugar. Right, the macular edema. So he's got fluid retention in the eyes. It's going to start to affect if it hasn't already started to affect all of the organs with small veins involved. This is why, they get diabetic neuropathy and kidney problems and blindness and stuff, because it's the small veins that get impacted by inflammation first. And the state of diabetes is a permanent inflammatory state because you have all this sugar and insulin floating through the body. And both of those basically burn the insides. They're highly inflammatory. So that situation needs to get under control. Diabetes is caused primarily by nutrient deficiencies and by processed foods, especially gluten, messing up your intestines so you can't absorb the nutrients properly that you would need to have healthy blood sugar. It typically is pretty easy to reverse. It's not one of the more difficult things. Not only are there a bunch of nutrient formulas that we can use, that's what I would normally start with, but there's also a bunch of very powerful herbs that can assist in bringing down the blood sugar faster, because he's got what I would call metabolic syndrome. Here's what it sounds like, right? So the blood sugar is only one part of that. It's only one leg of that octopus, and the other leg is one of the other legs is going to be the veins messing up, veins getting clogged up, veins hardening, including in the eyes.
Thank you for that. Let's go on to the next one. Let's see here. We have Joe. He says, what could help for neuropathy?
Same
Sean
thing.
or Ryan? Go ahead, Ryan.
Exact same thing we were just talking about. Neuropathy is most commonly just a symptom of metabolic syndrome. And he didn't mention any other symptoms, but I would absolutely assume that he has a metabolic problem. And that's where we would put all of our attention, right? The neuropathy isn't the problem itself, it's a symptom.
Thank you for that. Coach Sean, did you have something else you wanted to add?
Well, I mean, not much different. Just because neuropathy, where we had like lymphedema, where like the lymph is impinged, this would be the nerves are being impinged, and so it's still, as Ryan said, it's still not the root cause. It's still a symptom, and the larger root cause would be that the muscles are not operating properly. So it's not exactly a nerve issue. It's a deeper issue, and one side could be nutritional, one side could be postural, or it could be both. So it's important not to, just focus on one, and at least focus on all three. we don't want to ignore mindfulness either, but we want to implicate all three of those methods to ensure that this is not going to be a thing that comes back or recurs in any way. But yeah, it's surprisingly still going to be like a muscular issue.
Thank you. Wendy's asking this one for you, Coach Ryan. Scleroderma, what causes it? I have so much going wrong and I don't take meds. I'm eating good, no sugar, eating kidney safe foods. Any suggestions or thoughts for this person?
So scleroderma is inflammation in the connective tissue, so they could have pain everywhere in the body. It could look just like fibromyalgia. I didn't catch that on what she's eating. Could you repeat that?
She says she is eating good. She didn't say specifically what she was eating. She says no sugar and eating kidney-safe foods.
Okay, so I would assume that means lots of fruits and vegetables, basically. Um, I always put it in quotes when someone says they eat good, because typically they're not avoiding the poor four, right? They might be eating whole wheat breads and stuff like that, or pastas, and extra virgin olive oils and stuff like that. So gluten, oil, fried, and fake is the poor four. So if they're not avoiding the poor four, then you're not eating good. But it sounds like she's trying. Okay. So fruits and vegetables, I mean, they're great, but they'll take pressure off of the kidneys for sure. It'll supply you with extra antioxidants for sure. But it's most likely the immune system going haywire here from a leaky gut situation would be my top guess. So you can stave off symptoms by being on a very restricted diet if you have leaky gut, but there's a lot of things that should be done to help repair that gut. We got to put in materials that help to repair it. I would be using strategic fasting as well to just give the body time away from foods, right? Remember, this is most likely a leaky gut situation. So again, undigested food particles get into the blood where they're not supposed to be. The body mobilizes an immune response for that. Well, if you don't put any food in, then there's no immune response to it, right? So we would do that strategic fasting along the way. Sugar is absolutely irrelevant here. I know most mainstream doctors and even functional doctors and stuff, they'll say, get completely off of sugar. We really don't care about that. It's not relevant. We need nutrients to process sugar. If you're eating a high sugar diet, that's not good. But in general, you don't have to completely avoid sugar. And it's got nothing to do with the leaky gut situation. If that is the cause, which it most likely is. Again, I would expect to see on blood work and so on, lots of different immune markers. Would probably like to see a thorough stool analysis, like a GI map or a gut zoomer, which would confirm whether it's leaky gut or not, and give us some other clues on what to do to fix it, basically. But yeah, short story here, I'm going to assume that many nutrient deficiencies are present, but I'm going to assume first and foremost that there's a major digestion problem going on.
Got it. I actually spoke with somebody else this past week with a similar case that she had scleroderma or has it. But in her case, she's in so much debilitating pain. It's even affecting her eyes. She's had to go, well, she went and got treatments with her eyes and injections in her eyes because she was in so much pain. And could that be a blood sugar issue as well? What do you think on that, Ryan?
And this is a different person. I would still assume that the gut is the primary root cause there.
Okay. Well, and then they're recommending immune suppressors too, which then destroys the gut even more.
Mhm.
It's just like this, as Dr. Reese talks about in his books, the carousel of frustration.
Exactly.
She's been in it for a while.
Yeah, the mainstream medical world has basically nothing that can help with scleroderma, painkillers and stuff like that, but nothing to get even near the root. I doubt they even understand the root at all. Most people don't.
Thank you for your input on that. Moving on to another question. Caroline says, I have varicose veins. My legs are in lots of pain and I'm on my feet all day at work. Any advice, please? Ryan, we'll throw that at you too.
This is still to me. I'm looking for her comment here. Can you read that again? Sorry.
Sure. I have varicose veins. My legs are in pain. I'm on my feet at work. I need advice, please.
Well, varicose veins have nothing to do, in my opinion, with whether you're on your feet or not. They almost always show up with someone with a metabolic problem. Most of the time, not always, but most of the time, the person is pretty overweight. Not morbidly obese, but definitely carrying, 10, 20, 40, 50 extra pounds, which is very normal. There's lots of nutrients that are involved in connective tissue. It's primarily a connective tissue problem, but just like almost every other chronic problem, we tend to see, and I expect, a digestion problem, eating inflammatory foods, right? So it's part inflammation, part connective tissue deficiency. You need tons of nutrients for your connective tissue, sulfur, vitamin C, copper, selenium, etc. There's a whole bunch of them. And overall, I would expect them to have many other problems, not just varicose vein. She mentioned pain. It's got nothing to do with varicose veins. Most people don't even feel the varicose veins at all, right? So that says there's something else going on, which may be a fibromyalgia type situation.
Thank you for that. Coach Gingy, I'm going to hop over to you. The majority of people that get into our membership have heard of meditation, but how is mindfulness different from meditation?
I think that might be the first time I've had that question. Meditation is very specifically focusing your mind on a single thing at a time. What tends to happen for people is they'll have, something they're focusing on, but then they'll have a bunch of other thoughts in the back burner, or they may be, thinking they're multitasking, but really that's just switching back and forth between thoughts really quickly. And so if that's the case, having a meditative practice where you sit down and you just think about one thing, for example, the most common one is you just watch your breath go in and out. So you bring all of your awareness to your breath going in and out. While meditation is helpful, especially in like reducing stress and things like that, especially overthinking, anxiety, depression, stuff like that, mindfulness is quite a bit different. Mindfulness, in and of itself, is really awareness of what's going on. So rather than trying to turn the mind off, which people think is what meditation is actually for, it's really just to focus it in on one thing. Mindfulness would be going into understanding what the thoughts are that are going on and why they're there. So Dr. Reese developed a really good inner child work, which we offer in the program. And that's a way for you to shift the relationship between yourself and the inner child, the subconscious mind, because there's a lot of inner chatter that comes through by way of the subconscious. And in fact, most of that is subconscious inner chatter, where you're thinking, well, maybe I don't look good, or what's this person thinking, or did I do this right, or what happens if I lose my job? There's all these little thoughts that are popping up that you're not necessarily sitting down and intentionally trying to think about. It's like the thinking is just happening to you. And in that case, meditation, yeah, you can bring it in, you can force your mind into one thing, but what mindfulness is really good with is looking at those thoughts as they come up and then working with them. Why am I concerned about my job? Did something happen recently that triggered a subconscious thought process that made me think I might lose my job? And even if I do lose my job, then what's the worst that could happen? Can I not find another job? Can I not find a situation that's better than my current situation? Maybe it's because I don't have enough money saved up. Maybe I should focus on saving some money to alleviate this. So you see, we can start diving into why the thoughts are there in the first place and what the result ends up being. There's some members in the community right now that have been sharing with me, I think as recent as yesterday or even on Saturday's class, basically saying that the more that they do this work, the less inner chatter there is. Not only less, but even when it does show up, it's much quieter. It's like it becomes less overbearing and less burdensome, less of a problem. And all of a sudden now they're like, I love it when my subconscious starts to talk to me because I understand what it's trying to do. I understand how to work with it, quiet it down, come back to peace, and then navigate moving forward. So they're quite a bit different. I would almost call the mindfulness work that we do like resolving the underlying root cause or the underlying root issue of what's going on, whereas meditation could very easily just be a band-aid, unless it's some fancy different form of meditation than the standard, like sit down and clear your mind and focus on one thing. Even if the thing is watching the thoughts go by, that's the one thing you're focusing on. Breathing, it's the one thing you're focusing on, but you're not trying to juggle lots of thoughts, which in and of itself releases a lot of extra psychological stress, I'll say.
Thank you for that. When you were talking about that, it made me think of something. It made me think about when we listen to the radio back in the day. I don't think people do that as much now. It's more podcasts and Spotify and other things. But back in the day when we would turn the radio on, when we were between stations, there was a lot of static. And it seems like when you do mindfulness training, it's like you're fine tuning on the station you want to be on. And then that static goes away, that inner dialogue that's in the background of the subconscious mind. Would you think that would be true?
Yeah, and I would probably take it a step further because the two channels that you're talking about, I would probably summarize them as this. You have the events that are happening in the external environment, right? These are the things that are happening outside of you. And then there are a series of events that are happening inside of you. So, for example, somebody starts talking to you, you interpret their language, right? The vibratory frequencies coming out of their vocal cords, and you're internalizing them as words and concepts. And then you even overlay on top of that, this is what they mean by what they said. Like somebody could tell you that you look beautiful today, and you may internalize it as, well, this person is just trying to get something from me. That's what it means. That's why this person is giving me a compliment. And now you're not even really present for the compliment or what was said or what the person's intent was. You're only present to what you've overlaid on top of the events. And that's what's happening internally. So most people are just living completely in this internal imaginatory headspace where they're not really present to what's going on outside of them, not nearly as much as they're present to the thoughts and the beliefs that they're creating internally. And that is 100% where all of the mental stress and emotional stress comes from. In fact, it's very interesting. This is something that's good for everybody to know. If you have a thought, an emotion almost immediately um, happens right after. I almost said preceded, but it's not preceded. It's post-seated, but I couldn't think of the word. So it instantly after you have a thought, there's an emotion that's generated from the thought you have. But then from the emotion will trigger and make you more susceptible to certain thoughts. Like if you're frustrated, how likely is it that you're going to be patient with somebody and have thoughts of patience? Less likely because of the emotion of frustration that's there. So easily, very easily, and very commonly, what happens is something happens. Somebody has an immediate thought, even a subconscious thought, and that triggers an emotion, and then that emotion triggers a thought, and that thought goes back to the emotion, and it snowballs until you're so far disconnected, you're so far removed from what actually happened and what actually like took place as a series of events that now you're almost exclusively living in your imagination and you're very upset about it or you're very happy about it or you're madly in love or you're devastated or you're grieving or something else is going on. All of that emotional stuff we live in is a consequence of the way that we think consciously and subconsciously. So if you're getting good at mindfulness, then you're starting to intentionally choose the thoughts and intentionally choose the emotions and intentionally choose and build your experience. That way, you can actually build a mental and emotional dynamic that allows your body to heal from something. Because if you're chronically angry, chronically stressed out, like Dr. Reese says, you have this computer in your head and it's connected to the circuit breaker, your nervous system, and that thing's turning on and off different things in the body, sending electrical signals where they need to go. And if you're going to be creating stress hormones and all these other things, turning on and off digestion, all of the way that you think and feel impact your physiology. So you want to be intentional with that at the very least. So if you're going to be upset, choose to be upset. Don't let it happen to you. And that's the whole name of the game. Meditation would just be to sit back and let it happen and watch it, as opposed to be involved intimately in the process.
Thank you for that. I wanted to get back to our initial talk, fibromyalgia. Another factor, one of the key symptoms is fatigue. Typically, people are experiencing really a sense of being tired all the time, whether it's mental or physical exertion or from their illness. Ryan, Dr. Reese always talks about, and you brought this up today already, how getting off the poor four foods is so important for the body with the recovery process. Couple things with it. How does eating bad foods impact the body when someone's experiencing fatigue, but also with what Coach Gingy was sharing, sometimes people are emotionally triggered. Can bad foods affect that too? And how quickly can somebody feel the difference if they get off those foods?
A lot of questions there. So
Yeah.
the foods will be introducing inflammation directly into the body. And in the case of the fake foods, the fourth of the four foods, fake foods, there's a whole bunch of food additives that could fully set you off and basically cause fibromyalgia in the short term. I know fibromyalgia is a chronic disease state, but you could get the symptoms of it. The aching, the sensitivity, the fatigue, chronic fatigue is almost always associated with fibromyalgia, talked about in the same sentence, caused by the same things, fixed by the same things. So these excitotoxins, they call them, especially MSG and aspartame, can cause those symptoms basically immediately. But even if it doesn't have any additives in it, processed food, fake food, oxidized oil, and deep fried, no matter what, all of that introduces oxidation directly into the blood and starts to impact the veins right away and starts to impact other tissues as well. In the case of glutens and other grains, and maybe if you're sensitive to dairy or something, you have an intolerance, that will be causing more direct inflammation in the intestine itself. Because the oils, right, if they get absorbed in, they're going to inflame the veins, and then it's going to spread out to the whole body from there. But the glutens, and again, anything that you have a food intolerance to, it's going to inflame the intestines directly. So that prevents you from absorbing nutrients properly and creates the leaky gut, right? Gluten and dairy would be the two top suspects for causing leaky gut. Gluten is the most likely. And can it affect your mood? Yes, of course, it can affect your mood. They've even tested gluten-free diets, just gluten-free, not off the poor for people who had fibromyalgia, and it did improve all of them. 100% of them got some improvement. Maybe not 100% of the way, but all of them got some improvement. There's been more than one study done like that. Did you have another question in there that I missed?
I think you handled it really well. It just seems like there's so much. It's amazing how much the bad foods impact the health of one's body. And then, of course, once people integrate the three modalities that Dr. Reese has in the head to toe healing program, their body gets in a position where it can get out of pain, get out of chronic health conditions, and start feeling good, and people can have a vibrant life. And that's what it's all about. So if it is something that you're interested in, you want to get more information, go to drkevinreese.com, click on the book tab. You want to look at the green and red books first, get those, educate yourself, find out if head to toe healing is for you. And then once you've read those, reach out to us on the start button and schedule a call with one of our coaches, and we would be happy to answer more questions for you and find out if this is something you'd want to proceed with. But back to our questions, I wanted to reach over to Coach Sean and ask another question here. So for people that have chronic fatigue and that are weak, would posture alignment therapy give them a boost of energy? And in what way? I know for myself, after I do a posture session, I feel full of oxygen, I feel regenerated, I feel like I'm rested. Why do you think people can get energy from posture alignment therapy?
Well, they're doing structured movement. And when you do structured movement, you are one, getting more oxygen through blood flow to the throughout your body, because we're working on actively breathing, using that diaphragm to pump oxygen into the system, and then the blood gets flowing. And also, while the blood gets flowing, because all this oxygen is going through and we're breathing, we're kind of clearing out those alleyways, those pathways that have been blocked by postural misalignments. And so that's quite literally just opening up a bunch of dams, and it's boosting circulation. And then at the same time, you're also draining the lymph. And so your body is getting rid of the bad. It's also getting the nutrients and oxygen to places that probably didn't get sufficient oxygen before. And altogether, you're just getting a full boost of circulation in the body. And so even with like chronic fatigue cases, a lot of it is not that you're just tired all the time, that your muscles are just always tired. your muscles don't want to work anymore. It's not that case. They're just working too much, or the wrong muscles are doing too much of the wrong things. They're compensating for what smaller muscles should be doing, but due to the postural misalignment, wherever it may be, they are compensating. And the smaller muscles are just kind of fading away, because that's the rule in nature. What you don't use, you lose. And so, to answer your question about the chronic fatigue, it's not that, or, just trouble with energy in general. It's not that the body is not getting enough caffeine. It's not a caffeine deficiency. And it's not really that, I know that as people get older, they're like, I just can't do that anymore. And I just don't agree with that. I don't believe pain and dysfunction is a symptom of getting older. I think that all of those bad habits for posture are just catching up to you. And so getting proper movement and learning how to move properly and getting a good dose of that every day will help your muscles, one, start to actually function in the way they're supposed to function, and benefit each other, instead of one compensating and the other one just sitting there watching them. And also just get a good boost of circulation. I doubt that, and a lot of clients tell us this in the classes, that, wow, this is the first time that I actually sat down and took like a minute of deep breathing, because they're not thinking about that throughout the day. Even when you're stressed out, you'll probably take 2 or 3 deep breaths, and then you're just back at it. You're not actually concentrating on breathing. And so that's what we highlight in the classes. We highlight, movement, but we also highlight breathing, because that is a part of movement. Most people think it's just the lungs. You just focus on the lungs, but your diaphragm is the engine for your lungs. Your lungs are just a sack of flesh, and your diaphragm is that muscle, that motor that pumps oxygen, or like creates a vacuum, pulls oxygen in, and pumps out whatever carbon dioxide stuff. It controls the whole function of the lungs. And so it's an important muscle. But as I said before, what you don't use, you lose. And so with that, us not using our diaphragm adequately enough, we're shallow breathing all day, or we're sitting down at a desk all day and we're hunched on top of the diaphragm. That's where people get anxiety issues, because they're not getting enough oxygen to the body, because they're shallow breathing, because they're quite literally on top of their diaphragm. And I'm getting a bit of a tangent, but I'm just saying there's so many postural issues that people don't realize affects their anxiety, affects their fatigue. But it's quite simple as just getting the proper movement daily. Not just, being sedentary. If you're sitting down for more than an hour a day, you need to do something every hour, even if it's just to get up and get some water. Just find some movement in your life. But when you come with us, that's the whole point of what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the oxygen flowing through your body, get the blood flowing, get the lymph flowing, get everything flowing properly, and you will feel better. I hear it all the time. People are like, I didn't feel like doing PAT today, but I'm glad I did. And they always feel better, I promise you.
Thank you for that. Let's see if we can get a few more questions out of the chats here. Ryan, we have somebody in here named Steve. He says, what can honeycomb lung be? Can it be reversed? Honeycomb lung.
Never heard of honeycomb lung. Heard of popcorn lung. Can it be reversed? I don't know, but I would try. Which would be the answer to any, rare condition with some German doctors as the name. It's named after them. If you haven't heard of it, I would still try. If, as Dr. Reese says, if you're not born with it, then it's not yours. And they keep naming these things with more and more specific symptoms. So you've got 20,000 different diseases out there. But no, in the case of honeycomb lung, no, I've never heard of that, but we've heard of and seen all kinds of lung dysfunctions, lung deformities. Got one guy with a ball of fungus in his lungs, right? So yeah, not only would we use all 90 essential nutrients and just kind of hope for the best that the body is able to repair itself, we trust in the wisdom of the body, give it the raw materials to heal itself, and it generally can. But there's also a whole bunch of herbal options that can be used for the lungs as well. And in the case of a problem like this, I would most likely be using essential oils as well, which is not something I always go to. But with lung problems, it's very easy to basically breathe in those concentrated plant medicines that we call essential oils. And there's several of them that we could choose from. But yeah, I would need to know what else is going on with this person. When somebody comes and they just mention their main problem, the disease name, that doesn't tell us, are they overweight? Are they underweight? What's their eating like? What's their sleep like? What's their energy like? What's their mood like? And many, many other questions. Have they had any organs removed? Are they on any drugs? Do they currently take any supplements? Have they gotten benefit from those supplements currently? Right? There are lots, even more questions that would help us put together a picture of what's going on with this person to design a program for them. Because if you have something weird like that, then we're not going to have a standardized program for that. I'm going to have to make it up. And making it up will require as much information as I can get on this person, right? And if they have blood work or hair analysis or stool analysis, anything for me to look at to make more sense of the picture, to put it in context, I would like to see all that.
Fantastic. And you brought up a good point. That's one thing with head to toe healing. We have you do a head to toe analysis with Dr. Reese. You submit some information to us. We ask you a multitude of questions. We have you take some photos of your body. Dr. Reese takes that information and puts together a video for you, talking to you about what's going on with your body. That's your baseline, your symptom score. And what happens is about every 4 months in the program, you do that symptom score again, and you start, what our members find is they start seeing their symptoms dropping off. And that's the goal, is as each of those symptoms start to drop off, you start to feel better, you get out of the chronic pain, you're starting to have more vitality in your life. And that's just one aspect of the Head to Toe Healing program. So go to drkevinreese.com. Get your hands on the red and the green book. Check out the start page if you're ready to book an appointment with one of our coaches so we can talk to you directly about what's going on to see if this is for you. And we will be back again next week, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday for another Head to Toe Healing Live. We appreciate your time and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Stay healthy, everyone.
Take care.